Hello and welcome to whatever the hell I'm actually going to name this thing. Basically, back in the day, I used to do something called Warcraft Daily. It was a daily news show, and while I don't think I'm going to go back to a daily news format, I would like to at least do a video like this a few times a week to cover all the latest news, give my opinions on it, and of course inform people. So, while I don't have an exact plan, I just feel like doing a little bit more news-style content because I think it's a lot of fun, and it was certainly something that I enjoyed back in the day. Plus, Warcraft Daily lasted, I think, 303 episodes, so it seems like a shame to drop the idea completely, especially since it was such a massive part of the early days of the channel. Now that all that stuff's out of the way, it's time to actually get into the news. Now, this is the very first episode of this revamp of the show or whatever, so one or two of these items of news might be a little bit older. Don't worry though, stuff will be more up to date once the show is sort of running in full swing. First of all though, it's time to talk about the Winter Veil 2014. That has started today, actually, and there are a few new updates, which is pretty cool. Now these don't really come in the form of any new content or anything like that, it's just new items. So there's these things, gently shaken gifts, which can now contain cushions which you can place on the floor. Isn't that lovely? There's also new transmog socks that you can get, which again, I suppose is pretty nice. That's in the carefully wrapped presents. There's also a new item that you can find in a stolen present called the Scroll of Storytelling, which apparently it puts a sepia filter over your screen, which looks pretty badass. And then finally, this is pretty nice for those assassination and sub rogues. The miniature Winter Veil tree is an item level 635 dagger that you can find in a stolen present. That's nice. I wish my other classes had weapons that could just be found in Christmas presents, but certainly once I get my rogue up to 100, which should be within the, this Winter Veil period of time, I'll be sure to get that dagger. Now the dagger itself is BOE, so even if your particular character doesn't need it, you can always mail it over to an alt, or of course put it up in the auction house and make some fat stacks, yo, which should be fun. Yeah, Winter Veil's always fun enough. I like it when they do the holiday events, though I would like just some new content in the events. I know that these little items are fun and cute, but, maybe a new questline or something like that would be nice. Still, having more cool things is certainly nice, so I'm not really going to complain about that. So the next item of news is class changes. We've actually had some very recent class hotfixes. We saw some hunter buffs, a 5% across the board nerf to Windwalker monks, pretty crazy, and then also some good rogue buffs. Now, those hunter buffs might seem a bit insane to you, they were really just for the weaker specs, and hunters are now actually very much in the middle of the pack in terms of damage, at least based on Simcraft results. Certainly rogues needed this change to get back up to scratch, and I think monks definitely did need that, because even after a few tone downs in the previous round of class balance hotfixes, which I will probably flash up on the screen, and they were still pretty powerful. So, I know that while this doesn't apply to everyone, I think there's definitely discussion here about balance. Balance has been, I think, a little bit shaky in this expansion, at least it's definitely felt kind of shaky to me. Now this does come from the perspective of someone who was, of course, playing one of the top 3 specs. I was a marksmanship hunter, which was pretty insane in the early days of this expansion. Now MM's somewhere in the middle, and honestly I'm still performing quite well, so I'm happy enough with it. But it just seems like the balance was rough. They exited the beta of Warlords of Draenor really pretty hastily. A lot of us were very surprised that they went 10 days without any significant updates, and then boom, the beta was dropped and the expansion came out a little while after. That just seemed really hasty, and there's another thing which really does worry me as well. Blackrock Foundry. Now Blackrock Foundry does bring even more gear, so that is going to be, interesting in just how some of the classes scale with increased gear and stat levels, but also, in Blackrock Foundry, you'll get your Tier 17 set bonuses. Now, the set bonuses in Warlords of Draenor, at least for Tier 17, are absolutely bloody, they're bonkers, they're so powerful. I think they're awesome, though, they're really fun in terms of the gameplay that they provide, and that they really do, in many cases, change how a spec is played. Honestly, it feels like with some of the classes that they weren't particularly happy with, what they did is augmented the class by making a really fun set bonus. And while all this stuff is really nice, I'm worried about balance when it comes to Blackrock Foundry, because we're already probably going to go into that with not the best balance ever, and then perhaps some of the set bonuses, especially those big powerful 4 pieces, could kind of throw things off. It's hard to know exactly how it's going to pan out, but I'm just a little bit worried about it. Still, I can't wait for Blackrock Foundry, and I can't wait for those set bonuses, because numbers aside, they are, in my experience anyway, extremely fun. And by the way, during the beta, they gave us full sets of tier 17 gear with set bonuses, which is how I was able to test that out. Some crazy stuff, especially for the Paladins. You guys are going to have an absolutely procky, mad, insane time that will be a lot of fun. Now, there have been a lot of hotfixes and things going on recently. I'll put a link down in the description to Blizzard's hotfix thread. That's where they post everything, and if you're really interested, then it's probably worth just, you know, keeping tabs on that. Next, it's time to talk about Outposts. So this is another bit of excellent news, actually. Originally, the Outposts, well, obviously, you get your first Outpost for free, but if you want to swatch? No, that's a brand of watch, not a thing. If you want to swap one of your Outposts to the other choice, it costs a rather ludicrous 10,000 gold. Well, the good news is that that is being changed. In Nagrand, the Outpost only costs 500 gold to switch, and for the other ones, it costs about 5,000, well, exactly 5,000 gold, as of these new hotfixes, which I think in all regions will have been applied by today with the weekly resets. I just think this is really good. 10,000 gold was absolutely absurd. I mean, yeah, we are getting a lot more gold into the economy in Warlords of Draenor, but that does, I think, just punish players who don't really focus on gold far too much, especially with Nagrand. And actually, it's great that they've made it 500G for Nagrand, and I think the reason why is because the Siege Engine is great at lower gear levels, but eventually the Talbuk, or whatever, the mount thing which lets you attack while you're riding a mount, and that's better when you've got better gear. And also, for an example, if you're, say, doing the barn quest, or, you know, with the barn where you need to trap the animals, the Talari Talbuk, or whatever the Horde equivalent is, will be probably better than the Siege Engine at high gear levels, which means that a lot of people will probably want to swap that Nagrand thing, so I think that makes a lot of sense. In terms of the other outposts, yeah, I think 5k is a little bit too much. I'd say 2.5 would be fine, because I just think it would be fun to allow people to experiment with that, though of course you can't experiment with your various alts. You can't really gimp yourself though when it comes to them though, like, you've got no choice for your starter zone. Both the things for Gorgrond are pretty good. Both the Talador ones are pretty good, and with the Spires of Iraq, here's the thing, when I'm leveling up, I really just want to go for that extra XP, because I just want to get to 100 as fast as possible. And then even when I do get the Smugglers in thingy, I just think it's really boring as well. Yeah, the Spires of Iraq ones kind of suck in my opinion, but whatever, that's the change that's went on, and I think it's pretty good. So next up in the news, we have got Paragon's World First. This actually happened a few days ago, but Paragon are the very first guild to clear High Maul on Mythic difficulty, which is very impressive. Congratulations to them, and I'm pretty sure the Method came in second. Once again, Europe, despite having a day, you know, being a day behind because of when various things open in the various regions, once again they've beaten America, so come on Blood Legion and Midwinter and friends, you guys need to get up to scratch with the Euros. So pretty cool. One little interesting tidbit though is that it's a bit weird with the World First, because the final boss to die to Paragon was actually Mythic Butcher. They killed the final boss and then went back to kill Butcher with all the gear that they gained from the other Mythic kills, which I think is pretty interesting. It certainly makes sense because Butcher is, I believe, mainly a gear check fight, and, well, a basic coordination and then gear check fight. So it's a bit interesting the way that happened. I think there was maybe a minor controversy, but just about everyone has agreed that no, Paragon did win, they did it legit, and perhaps it's Blizzard's fault for making it so that the final boss isn't the final thing you can kill. Though personally, I am happy that it's just so open in terms of the ordering in which you go through High Maul. I think it really is awesome, and as I said in yesterday's video, certainly probably the best intro raid to an expansion that we've got yet. So that's it for Paragon, well done, and let's move on to the next bit of news, which is about the pet and mount sale, woohoo! You can buy the various pets and mounts for 50% off. That includes everything apart from the recent Grinning Reaver and Argy, the Ebola Goat. They're not 50% off. The same goes for the Warforged thingy-majig, but everything else is 50% off. So if you want to buy a mount or something like that, then this is a pretty cheap time to do it. And if you want to give some, I don't know, convenient kind of Christmas gift or whatever, something, holiday gift, Is that a thing in the internet now? If you accidentally say Christmas, then like everyone screams at you. Oh no, the screaming. I don't care. You can give a gift to someone and it's pretty nice. Though one little annoying thing actually is that the Ebola goat is not giftable yet. And I really wish it was, because it would be a cool little gift, especially since the money does actually go to a good cause. Anyway, that's that with the pet and mount sale. Let's move on to DK creation. This is something where I'm not normally in favor of something being a restriction, but I think this is a bit silly. So, as I'm sure you all know, right now in the game, you are able to only make a DK if you have a character above level 55. Well, they're removing that, and their reasoning behind that is basically the whole level 90 boost thing kind of makes it irrelevant. I mean, I'd say yes, but here's something that I think maybe they didn't think of. When you're leveling up your first character, and if you've got the WoW Starter Edition, or just, you know, the Battle Chest, and you don't know if you're really going to commit to the game, therefore you don't have Warlords, and you're just leveling up your character, do you know what's really nice? Just having the sense of you really earning something once you hit level 80 or 55, you know, you get that free DK, so maybe even if you're level 50 or 40 and you're a bit bored of the class that you chose, well, you know that if you're just able to push on for those extra 15 levels, then you can try a whole new class. I know that there's a bit of a carrot and stick sort of thing going on there, but I think that in terms of providing people with compelling reasons to continue playing the game on their very first way, you know, like time through, where I think a lot of people do end up bouncing off the game, I just think that removing that's maybe not a very good decision, and honestly that level requirement doesn't really hurt anyone anyway, because, I mean, come on, we're all playing the game, we all have characters over level 55, so it's basically just saying, hey, if you're new to the game, you can make a level 55 character instantly. It just seems weird to me. Yeah, bizarre. Anyway, that's that with the DK creation. And then finally, I just want to briefly touch on the profession changes. Now, this really is old news. I suppose you could see it as scraping the bottom of the bucket, but I do think it's worth talking about. So, with alchemy and jewel crafting, they have kind of changed up the recipes. I think the main issue, though, is with alchemy. Now, the way that it used to be with alchemy is many of the potions would require you to have some herbs, yes, but then also maybe a bit of food or some sort of oil. And I think this was a bit better in terms of design because it made this more dynamic economy with more moving parts. So it meant that you could have people who could maybe, you know, farm up some meats and sell the meats, or maybe people with the barn could sell their meats to the alchemists. Well, now they've changed it, so that instead potions just cost herbs. Now, I think there's really two sides to the coin here. On the one hand, if everything costs just herbs, then I guess technically it's a little bit easier to just manage it if you are the alchemist. But I think in terms of the overall effect on the game, having more mats and more things play into that profession was a bit more interesting because it opened up some avenues of gameplay. Players could legitimately go and farm meats if they wanted to. If you had the barn, you could sell your meats, and because they were used in alchemy, they had a decent amount of value. What we've actually seen now, and I did check the Undermined Journal for the sort of global median prices, is that they have went down significantly since this has went into the game, and it's now no longer a thing that people can do. It's interesting because the economy can drive so many different forms of gameplay, and sometimes an oversimplification of the economy removes that gameplay because there's no longer really an incentive to do it because, you know, supply and demand is being jumbled up such that there isn't really that much demand for the supply. A bit weird. So yeah, unfortunate with what's going on with alchemy. Now, the other thing they did was with jewel crafting, and I actually do think this is a good change because it was a little bit silly. So they have adjusted some of the recipes such that they in general require more ore and less herbs. I think this absolutely makes sense because right now, if you actually look at the economy, ore prices are stupid. You know, there is so much supply for ore to the point where if you're a miner, well, I mean, screw that. It's pretty bad for the herbalists, but for the miners, it's just stupidly bad. There is so much ore floating around the place, so just adding, you know, more ways of expanding ore or getting rid of it from players is definitely a good thing, and I do support that jewel crafting change. It's strange. There's actually, you know, it's getting to the point where ore it could be so cheap that you could buy up ore as long as it's under a certain price threshold and then just, you know, craft items with it, then disenchant them and basically do a shuffle and, you know, use that dust to make enchants and sell them. Which is a bit strange, actually, considering how things are panning out the economy. Yet, look, Warlords of Draenor has just got a weird economy. I agree with some of the aspects of it. It's a bit more accessible and some of that stuff's fine, but I don't like so many things being gated behind time-limited resources, and I just think that's a little bit problematic. At least they've sort of improved dual crafting, though I really think that that's a bit of a sad alchemy change. And, well, I don't think there's really much else to say about it. Anyway, that is it for whatever the hell this news thing is going to be. As time goes on, I'll work on a format, maybe I'll do some fancy graphic overlay stuff if that ends up being a thing. But in general, I just missed having an outlet for this kind of thing. So that's what this is. Any suggestions, comments, feedback, etc. are all massively appreciated, and I will be reading the comments of this video, so be sure to let me know there. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.